I understand, I'm not going from one side to the other, but it's nice to see some stuff. I guess I'm a tree hugger or whatever, so it's nice to see some stuff down for the wildlife and all that. And then,
Well, it's more, it's not, they're not gonna go in the woods and get it.
Well,
It's gonna be more of, stuff falling
Right,
in
but-
the
but that
park.
was what I think somewhere along the line where we're going down this stuff, that the audience can stop that, because go back to this policy up here, the resolution for the manual service. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. This line item, old business one. You know, the maintenance manual and emergency response. I have no clue what's that all about.
That's for the water and sewer plant per crossing.
But I guess what
It's
else?
like any business, like working at Wyatt or working at Merck, you have to have an emergency services plan.
Right.
That's all that is.
But you come to these meetings and you don't know what some of this stuff, you guys get it and know, understand it, but when you're out here, you're trying to figure out, and that's like, hey, could you kind of explain this to me? I'm not trying to make trying to change the world to go around, but it's just like to know a little bit more what's happening, or when you remember, like, I didn't hear anything about we had that lady from the county or with the transient people coming up to the park, Park. I don't know where that stands. Now, that was something.
That was all false.
Well, you addressed it, it's on the website.
Yes.
Well, I don't want,
I'm just-
but I don't have time
Right.
to get on the website. And I, believe me, I'm an old fart. I gotta be careful how I say things, but I don't have time to go through all this stuff and get down, and so that's where I come with some of this, is not to try to make a meeting fight or anything, but just to kind of catch what you're talking about. It's trying to hold it to the end and to try to remember what I wanted to ask, because again, I'm old and senile.
You're not seeing it.
All righty?
Thank you. Before that, I do have to ask Frank a question. The sign.
Oh, yeah, that was another thing, yeah.
Frank, I want your opinion on the sign.
Is he starting his 3 minutes over again?
Yes.
Yes, he brought it up.
I would have raised my hand on that, because back with the sign discussion, remember I said, the sign thing is gonna create a whole lot of buzz, and it sounds like it may have. Now, right now, kudos to you, or to the board, or whatever. It's not flaring, stuff and stuff like that.
I mean, it is dimmed down, and I do go by at night, and I looked at it, and I'm like, okay. And that was my biggest concern, was the sign shining, down 73.
So, yes. But I remember when I was, this is gonna create a whole lot
We're a
of.
municipality.
Well,
You're not
which
gonna-
is why we want to do a policy,
Yeah.
right? So that we're not,
Yeah, I mean, Swanksville's sign was originally the firehouse sign, that they had contracts with many people to advertise on that sign. So I don't know if the township's just filling out the rest of the policy, contracts, but yeah, I mean, that's where that sign came from. That was never the original municipality sign, that was the firehouse sign.
Other public comments? Please, Deborah.
Hi, Tracy Hartford, 2852 Big Road. I just want to, I understand what Frank is saying, and I just want to kind of underline that. Public comment is public comment, but all he wants to do, and maybe others, is just ask a question as we go along. It shouldn't be seen as inflammatory. We're trying to understand, right? So we know what's going on. I think if it's done with the decorum you're expecting, I don't think it's too much to ask to be able to, as a person sitting in this audience, to just raise our hand and go, what did you say, or what did you mean? Instead of saying it to the end, we're like, what just happened, okay? But that's very different than standing up and just giving a public comment. So I think you should consider allowing people to ask questions as we
I
get
got a
on.
hammer.
Sorry. I'm gonna look at the car next time. Turn it off.
Okay. Public comments, other public comments. Yeah, go ahead.
Dawn Grove, 2852 Big Road. I don't care about the meeting minutes because I'm here, but a lot of people in past meetings have complained that the meeting minutes are not available prior to this meeting, which would also help us come in here with public comments that we could ask you, because we could look at them ahead of time. And now, since you can't approve the meeting minutes for what, 3 meetings was it, Tracy?
Great.
Now, none of us can look at them. And so we can't come in educated to ask you a question, because we can't even look at public meeting, or the meeting minutes February. So we've asked, what are you gonna do about getting them on the website sooner, so that we, as your constituents, can come in and say, I need to ask you about this.
Okay, thank you.
Could I have another 2 minutes?
Right, we can talk, we can catch up later.
Well, yeah. Why did it go from 4,000 to 400?
Oh, the website,
Oh,
different company.
I mean, that's a,
yeah,
Well-
so PSATS is a, it's an organization that serves just townships, so it's a kind of like a semi-governmental organization. And I think that, so they're not out to make money, right?
Okay.
And so I think that's
main.
the main thing. I mean, it's just very.
Are live meetings able to be posted on there? I mean, do they have that capability?
So it would be a link to like YouTube or Facebook or whatever. So you would have to click on the link and then go to, you know, wherever it was being streamed.
Right. Well, what are we giving up? I mean, because that seems like a big, that's, you know.
I
that
know,
seems-
it's a big savings. I don't think we're giving up anything. It's
Yeah.
the same foundation. It's WordPress, I guess, is what like 85% of websites use as their sort of foundation. And we're still using it, although we're upgrading from WordPress to what's called TownPress, which gives, if you look at Dallas Township's website, you'll kind of get a sense of how they lay it out. And for those of you who've like tried to play with our website, you kind of have to hover over each thing at the top and like figure out, is it business, is it government, where would it be? And then you have to click that and then you have to go. So there's like several clicks right now, the way we're set up, whereas with the new setup, we're hoping there'll be a line of clicks on the left side that'll take you directly to where you want to go. And we're going to try to have our most common items there so that it's easier to get to. Okay?
We'll do that.
And if people have suggestions, take a look at Dallas Township. That's the model that we're sort of using to start with, but we're open to suggestions, okay? I mean, we all want to make it user-friendly, and even for us, I can't find things on there.
When you talk about adding things, like what could you even add? Like when you ask for
Well, so there's been discussion of, you know, maybe developments, right? So maybe putting development applications on there so that people could at least see the plans, at least the latest reiteration, that sort of thing. The streaming, if the board decides they want to go that route, we could have that on there. Monthly reports maybe of our professionals. We post them in the lobby, but maybe we can post them there. So, I mean, it's really a matter of, you know, what the board directs and, you know, if the public
what the public
suggests
wants.
things, yeah, if the public suggests things and then the board directs me to do it, then I'll put it on there. Okay?
All right. Go ahead, Norton.
Just for everyone's sake, PSAT stands for Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors. And the reason it's a tremendous asset for townships is because they exist to serve municipalities across the state. So when Tracy had mentioned Dallas Township, if, you know, they probably gave Tracy and Kate a list of who they serve already. You go to these different ones and you say, oh geez, I like this. They don't have to recreate that, and they're not in the business of making money, like where you would normally you know, contract with a private company where they're gonna say, well, what do you think? Oh, we really like this. Well, we're gonna bill you again
Right.
for that same service.
Right.
So there's a difference. I mean, PSATs has, I mean, you could have a barking dog ordinance. You start at PSATs because, you know, Ken had said, you know, when it comes to an audio tape policy or whatever, there are avenues that you can go that will get you 75% of where you want to be, and you don't have to do as much work, as opposed to, you know, going to, in the case of a website provider or manager or something, they're in the business to make that money, whereas PSATs, yeah, they have bills to pay, but you're gonna take advantage of work that they've already done. So it's really a tremendous asset for municipalities across the state.
Okay. Kevin?
Kevin Murray, 3424 Big Road, also on the park board for forever. I'm not a fan of the free wood thing, especially at the parks, for a couple reasons. One, like Chris said, they're not gonna spend the time to cut the stuff up into manageable pieces. So like if they have a big log that they're picking up with the thumb on the backhoe and putting in the back of the truck and dumping into the park, we're gonna invite people to come in there with chainsaws to cut them up and put them in their trucks. And the second thing would be, if people see a pile of brush in the parking lot of the park and it says free wood or whatever, they're gonna be bringing stuff from their house and branches and all that stuff to the park. So I think
That's a good point.
I think it's I think that's a bad idea. If it's here and the guys can manage it, maybe, but not at the parks.
Is there a use that like the parks could use it, like Parks and Rec, is there something we could put this
If
in?
it's chipped, then we use it for trails.
I do know of other municipalities that actually have a chipper and they'll have a mulch pile with people, but you still have a similar issue. To me, if you've got a need for something that benefits the entire municipality, Parks and Recs, and you, during the year, let's say, you generate a wood pile and at the end you rent it for a day, you run everything through a chipper and Parks and Rec can use it, then you're still benefiting the entire township by way of the park system, so.
Yeah, I mean, those are good points, so, you know, I mean, if you guys wanna hold off on the firewood policy, or the free wood policy, that's fine too. You know, it's just that I got a phone call, and somebody, you know, was interested in going in, and they saw some wood in a park, cut up, and they.
That's a bad idea.
Well,
Because
no,
then,
right.
like,
But
yeah,
that's-
everybody's
but
gonna
that's
go
what
in and then ask
Correct.
for forgiveness before permission.
Well, and that's why we were trying to come up with a policy that would discourage them from going into the parks, right? If we could just put it somewhere that was reasonable for them to get. But it does sound like maybe it's more trouble than it's worth,
Yes.
and maybe we should skip that one.
All right, I guess we'll think about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Wendy Kramer, 614 Colonial Road. I just have a question, it's not on the agenda, just have a question. The property, the log house, I know they put the fence up, which is fine, but they cut down the trees and just throw it in the yard. Is there any kind of ordinance or something that we don't just like trash the place?
Yeah,
It's free wood.
Yeah, well, they want free wood, I know where they should go. I just, you know, it just is, they just kind of cut the trees down and throw them in the yard. So it's very trashy looking. So I don't know if there was some kind of, if I did that in my yard,
There is a rubbish ordinance.
I'd probably get fined or,
Two would be on one.
so I wasn't sure if there
I'll
was
ask
something.
the
Which project?
enforcement.
Yeah, I
We'll
wasn't
take a look.
sure.
Yeah, I mean, we had asked them to clear the vegetation away from the house,
They- and they
because-
did.
and they did, and we asked them to
But
put
they
the
just,
fence up,
they just dumped the, right
dumped it right there,
right there,
okay.
next to
All
the
right.
fence.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Well, they did take some away.
What?
I know.
They did have
I-
some, they took some of them away.
Did they?
Yes.
Any other public comments?
I just want to just emphasize, I do agree with Frank and Tracy about, as the board, you should err on the side of letting residents speak, and when an issue come up, very respectfully, but I mean, I think the residents are concerned with what's going on, so I think during the agenda items, you should have it, and definitely at the end of the meeting, I still want to emphasize that, how important that is. Last month, the board directed Tracy to take a look at the filming the meetings, whether it's live or whether it's put up the day after, and I'm just wondering if there's any progress on that.
Not a lot. So we looked a little bit at YouTube and Facebook, and then we looked at surrounding municipalities as far as what they do. Not a lot of them do stream the meetings, we learned, and I think one that does stream the meeting deletes it once the minutes are approved. Is that accurate? Yeah. So at this point, we're kind of waiting to get the website up and then direction from the board as far as how they want us to proceed from here.
And Tracy, I also heard not just live streaming, but just have it up on the next day, you know, I mean, it doesn't have to be live, just so the residents who don't have the time to come to the meeting like we're here tonight, to be able to do that. So I think that, you know, could be a variation of the live streaming. One other question I have is the January 9th ethics violation by one of the supervisors. I was just wondering if that payment, that minimum payment was made for this month. Do you have any idea? To the township?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
I'd have to double check, I'm sorry, there's a lot going on.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that that's.
Remember every
that's being-
payment, but yeah, I can
Makes
double
sense,
check
yeah.
that.
And just to clarify, the violation is from 2021.
Okay,
So even though the decision from the state was issued January of 2023, the violation is from 2 years ago, which was a completely different staff and many different players here at the township, just,
that's fair.
yeah.
That's fair, yep, but it was just public notice in
Correct,
January.
yeah. Just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
That's all I have, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, all right.
That one.
Oh, sorry.
Bruce Freeze, 538 Colonial Road.
What was the last name? Sorry.
Freeze, F-R-I-E. Just to clarify, the water supply ordinance public hearing.
Yes.
At the planning commission meeting, this was a rush to try and get this in place tonight. And I understand, I would have liked to ask while it was being discussed, but here we are. It has to be made public. Can you just explain a little bit more for those
Sure,
that are
yeah.
interested?
So at the planning commission meeting, I had checked the municipality's planning code for advertising requirements. And there was a requirement that it get advertised once, at least 7 days before the scheduled hearing. So that's why we thought we could get it by tonight, based on the timing. However, there's another provision in our code that actually requires that it be advertised 2 times in 2 consecutive weeks. And it also requires that the supervisors first pass a resolution to set the hearing date. So once we started trying to back into that, it wasn't possible to adopt it tonight. And so by the time this is the next meeting of the supervisors, so this is the first night that they could pass that resolution, setting the hearing date. And now we have to have enough time to advertise it 2 consecutive weeks. So that basically pushes it to their meeting on the 4th. We could do it maybe a few days before that, but at that point it was kind of like, well, we probably just should do it on the 4th. And then that gave us time to incorporate the bonding language that had been discussed at the planning commission. So we figured we'd at least take advantage of incorporating that as part of this. So I do apologize. So that's kind of how we had to push it out, 2 to 3 weeks.
So there hasn't been any other further movement on this project, that you know?
Correct.
Thank you.
Now I will say that, we're going to take the final draft of that water supply ordinance back to the planning commission on the 27th at their meeting, which is before the hearing on the 4th, and there's a chance that the developer could be at that meeting. So at that point, he will know about it if he doesn't see the advertisements beforehand, which is, that's fine, that's the point of advertisements. And we keep our fingers crossed that it's not enough time for him to submit a plan. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other public comments? Okay, you say public comments are over. Tracy, do you want to, I know we talked about having it's on the website, but do you want to speak to the, what we found about the issue with the park? Can we talk about that? The homeless
Oh,
situation
yeah,
was brought up.
I'm
because
sorry,
I think
yeah.
folks should hear.
Right, so the question about the homeless, so after that meeting where it was an issue with the supervisors, we did ultimately get a hold of folks at the park and at the county, and we did receive confirmation that The county had been contacted last fall by an organization that tries to find locations for homeless people. And the way that they explained it is they were really looking at all the county properties to see about possibilities for housing people through the winter. And so the reason that it never made it to the township was it essentially got squashed at the county level. By the time they went through the process of considering moving people into a campground that doesn't have water, sewer in the winter, and electricity, and then they would have to run generators just to, give them some sort of power. And then someone asked, I guess, well, how much is it gonna cost you to run generators for these people to have power? Wouldn't it just be cheaper to put them in hotel rooms? And so essentially, the way it was explained to me that it never got to the township for discussion because it just didn't seem feasible. And so that's why we didn't know about it and it didn't happen. So hopefully that explains it.
Do we know who the organization was?
I don't,
It
no.
seems to be awful secretive. I mean, we can't seem to, everybody is always, this organization contacted this or, nobody seems to be coming up with a name. It would sure be nice if we could find out, get to the root of this, find out who was reaching out and contacting all these county municipalities and parks and whatnot.
So I don't know the name of the organization. I was told it's an organization in Norristown that their task is to find places for folks to live who don't have places to live. And I believe that they are partially funded by the county, so the county does provide funding to them to help them.
Look, I would like to know who this organization is as well.
Can we research that for our records so we know, in case this happens again in the future?
Sean, I did a little research on the web, in Norristown, and there appears, I don't have the name in front of me, but there appears to be one organization, and I can't say it is the one, that specializes in this type of providing homes for the homeless. It's possibly, but it stuck out like a sore thumb, but I can't verify.
Right, so like when we started asking, they just said it's some organization, they wouldn't tell you who it was?
Well, I didn't push it. I mean, it didn't really seem relevant because,
It's
essentially.
just like we want to know who the players are, that's all.
Exactly.
It wasn't gonna happen.
Right.
Right, exactly.
That's the part you wanted to know.
Yeah, the part
Right,
I
that's the
needed to
important
know,
part, right?
yeah, the part I needed to
Well, it's
know
more,
was it happening?
it's not gonna happen, and why weren't we notified was.
Because they stopped it there.
They stopped it there, so at least then we knew why we weren't
Yeah.
notified.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, some of the commentary that was directed last month at the meeting regarding the homeless, I know that Tracy, I think she went down on Sunday. I drove down to the park on Saturday, 2 or 3 times, and also Sunday, and I spoke to 2 of the park rangers. They knew nothing about it. One of the curators that takes care of the flower garden by the outhouses down there for a half an hour, he knew nothing about it. He said that number one, it wouldn't hold up because the bathrooms aren't even open. I think Tracy got in touch with the trooper, there was no other crime that was elevated. So I can tell you that if you bring questions to the Board of Supervisors here, I will do my part, and I'm sure the other 2 gentlemen will, to find out what you bring and if it does hold fact. Ken was attacked